Hi, it looks like some of you are coming in, and that's great. So we'll give people a few minutes, probably not a few, just a couple minutes to log in before I do some introductions and we get started. I'm so happy you guys are joining. I hope everyone can hear me. There's like a Q&A, I think toward the bottom of your screen or maybe the top of your screen. You can write things in there and I can see them. So feel free to use that. All right, a few more people are still joining. I hope everyone's Wednesday is going well. That little storm last night, if some of you are in my area, I was a little nervous that we'd lose power or Wi-Fi and I wouldn't be able to do this today. So I'm happy so far. It looks like it's working. So I'm just gonna launch a poll so that we can kind of see who's here. Obviously people are still joining in, so you can select kind of who you are. Gives us a sense of who's in here because it was open to anyone, which is great. A lot of you are answering, that's good. And it's kind of a mix. Wow, I'm really impressed. Some freshmen and sophomores are here. That's awesome. I love that. You guys are way more on top of it than I was. Oh, Mrs. Moody's here. Yes, we might have some of your counselors joining us, depending on where you're from. It's awesome. Really cool. I love that. It's great. All right, so we waited a couple minutes. I'm gonna jump in and get started, but we'll have a slow start. So if people still kind of trickle in, that'll be totally fine, and they'll be able to catch up. And I'll find ways to share this when we're done. So if you want to come back to any of it, you can. So I'm going to end this poll so that we can move on to the next thing. So my name is Melody Ferguson, and I'm the Associate Dean of Admission at Pacific Lutheran University. So I work very close to here, and right now I'm broadcasting live from Bonnie Lake, Washington, which is where I live. So I'm lucky enough to work with students near my house, and that's why this was kind of offered up to you guys today. I know Bonnie Lake High School has a parade today, so I'm really happy for those of you that have joined me before the parade starts. So, but we'll be done in plenty of time for that. So we're going to do a series of 4 webinars. They each kind of stand alone, but they also do build on each other. So if you choose to join me for all 4, awesome. If you choose to join me for 1, that's okay. Well, I hope you're here because you want to learn a little bit more about college, how to even start this crazy process, maybe even especially in this virtual environment. So this presentation will have a series of traditional tips, but also some tips I added in based on the fact that a lot of you are researching college from home right now, or even starting to think about this process from home. So the very first one is kind of our broadest session. I wanted it to allow us to learn some of the lingo of higher education, some of the things I didn't know when I was in high school. What are the different types of colleges? How do I even decide what kind of college might fit me? That's what we're going to do today as we kind of jump into how to even start this college search process. So I will take questions. I'm probably going to answer most of them toward the end, so you can put them in that Q&A at the bottom if you have them. I might just wait until the end because it's hard to present and to answer questions at the same time in this format, but we're going to do the best we can. So to get started, I am going to start with a little bit of a deeper introduction of myself because I want you to know why I think I have some tips and tricks to share for you. So my own college search kind of my own pathway. It's always funny thinking back quite a few years to when I was in your shoes. And to be honest, knowing that quite a few of you are freshmen and sophomores, I was not even thinking about college at your age. So I'm so thrilled that you are. I was a first generation college student. So my parents had not gone to college. They were super supportive and excited that I wanted to, but they didn't really know how to help me get there. And the internet didn't exist in the way that it does now. So I was maybe a little less overwhelmed than you were or are, but I still didn't quite know how to make this happen. So the very first time I thought about college was the fall of my senior year. And I went to one of these giant college fairs. So this picture over here would give you a little bit more information about that. It was super intimidating. I didn't find it helpful at all. But part of that was I didn't go prepared. And so one of the things we're going to talk about today is how do you go prepared to a campus visit or even an email to a college so that you aren't underwhelmed or intimidated by the process. So I walked through the center aisle. I didn't engage with any of these people on the sides, which is funny because now I'm one of those people. And I just grabbed brochures that I thought were really pretty. So the school I thought I wanted to go to was Pepperdine University because I lived in Federal Way, Washington at the time. I went to Federal Way High School, and yeah, that looked really nice. Like it was a bluff in Malibu and there was water, and who wouldn't want to go to school there? But I didn't research majors. I didn't research if I would belong there. I didn't research the type of school it was, or even if I could afford it. I just thought it was pretty. So don't do what I did. I finally stepped foot on my first college campus in the spring of my senior year when I toured the University of Washington. And that is where I ended up going to school, partly because I ended up finding out Pepperdine was not a place I would have belonged very well, and I couldn't afford it. And University of Washington was a place that felt comfortable to me. I liked the idea of living in a city. That seems like a fun transition. And I knew I could find something that I could study there. It was a big enough school. It was a great fit for me, but I don't know if I actually did my best at researching colleges. So what I'm hoping is some of you will, whether you end up at the school you're thinking you're going to go to right now or not, will better understand how to navigate this process. So I didn't know the difference between private and public schools. I didn't know what that meant when I was your age. I didn't even apply to any in-state private colleges. I applied to Pepperdine, was the only private school I applied to because it was pretty. So I just didn't understand the differences. I didn't know about my community and technical college options. So we're going to break these down a little bit. But one of the things I want to note is that the 4 sessions we're going to talk about, we're going to talk mostly about 4-year undergraduate. So we're going to break down all those words in a second. Public and private universities. We're not going to really dive into community and technical colleges, but I do want to touch on them a little bit in this first session for some of you that are considering them now or will need to in the future. So community and technical colleges are wonderful opportunities. Also, we're really lucky in the state of Washington, I'll show you why in a second, to have so many choices. There are quite a few careers out there that don't require you to go to a school like Pacific Lutheran University or University of Washington. They actually require you to go to a community or technical college. They offer programs in being an auto mechanic or a hairdresser, or even some nursing and education programs are taught at community and technical colleges. So for some students, this is the right place to go for what you want to be when you grow up. For other students, it's a wonderful opportunity to press the refresh button. Maybe high school is going really well for you, that's great. But for some students, it takes a while to kind of get into an academic rhythm of being able to take those rigorous courses and get good grades. And so it might limit some of your opportunities of getting into college, 4-year colleges. So community colleges are great because on the first day of community college, you start fresh. You have a 4.0 GPA and you're working toward that same degree. You're just going to do 2 years with them and then 2 years with a school like us. So those 4-year colleges kind of get split in half. And for some students, they might pick a community or technical college because of finances. But I will tell you that sometimes that's an assumption. So some public schools and some private schools might actually be the same cost or cheaper for you. But community technical colleges do offer a very affordable education. And we have one on like every corner. This is a slightly older map. Some of them call themselves like Bellevue College now, but I like it because it shows you just in this, little I-5 167 corridor, how many options there are of community and technical colleges. So they're very accessible. So you can even go away from home. Some have residence halls, so you have lots of options. So don't write them off yet, or if you are really excited about one of these options, know that you have so many choices. For some students, they just want to leave Washington, right? You're like, I want to go to California. I need some sunshine, although today is lovely so far. Or maybe you just want to go to the mountains or be in the middle of nowhere in Montana. You have lots of options. There's two things specifically I want you to start researching. One is a program called Western Undergraduate Exchange, or it's really fun to say, WUI. We call it the WUI Scholarship. It's only in those states, and it's only at public colleges in those states, because public colleges have in and out of state tuition. So that's why it's cheaper for you to go to University of Washington than it is for someone from Oregon or California. They're giving you a break because you're a state resident. So if you want to go out of state to Oregon and go to Oregon State University or something like that, they're going to charge you more because you're not a state resident. So this is one of those ways where not every school in every state belongs to this program, but you can go onto the website, you can see what schools belong in each of the states, and then you can see what the requirements are. Some do have GPA requirements. Some it's only for specific majors, so maybe not for engineering, but for English it is okay. And some it's competitive, meaning that you can apply for it and you may or may not get this scholarship. But it is a really nice way to make out-of-state tuition a little bit more affordable for students not from that state. So something to look at. There's also something with private schools. So schools like Pacific Lutheran University don't have in and out-of-state tuition. Just one tuition for all students, no matter where they come from geographically. But what they're able to offer are a lot more merit scholarships. So what merit scholarships are they tend to be based on your GPA, your rigor of coursework, or sometimes your talent. So things like music or theater or athletics might come into play. So private schools are sometimes a really good option if you're looking at leaving the state of Washington or staying in the state of Washington, if finances is something you need to consider. So those are two things that I think not everyone considers when thinking about, I just want to leave the state of Washington. And I really want you to start researching those programs. But if you ask a private school, do you have WUI? They're going to tell you no, because they don't have in and out of state tuition. So that's why looking at both of those is important. All right. So I've been using the word private school. Sometimes people use the word independent college. I've given you some examples at the top. Private or independent colleges don't receive as much funding from the state that they're housed in. So that's why they function a little bit differently than a public college. A lot of times students don't even apply to private colleges because maybe they're nervous about the price. So one of the things that we're going to talk about a little bit later, and we'll talk about a lot more in the financial aid and scholarship workshop, is the idea of sticker price and net cost. So sticker price is what, when you Google, Pacific Lutheran University tuition, that's what comes up. That's the cost of attendance at PLU or at any private school or public school. But then there's the net cost. That's the average cost most students pay. So at PLU, 97% of our students receive some sort of scholarship or financial aid. Now it varies in size and shape, but it sometimes has to do with some of these things listed here. So for some of these private colleges, they can give out athletic scholarships just like public schools can. They give out merit scholarships. We just talked about those. Those are based on GPA, artistic talent, rigor of coursework, those kind of things. Need-based scholarships, so based on your household income. Also, if you go to a private school in Washington, you can still get the Washington State Need Grant or College Grant. So if you signed up for College Bound in middle school, it was a need-based scholarship program, that still applies at private schools in Washington. So you can use that at either. And then sometimes, here's a fun one to ask a school, is do they use your weighted GPA? So some schools, if you've taken AP, IB, pre-AP, pre-IB, even honors courses, they'll bump your GPA up for each of those classes you take. It's called a weighted GPA. So when PLU considers you for admission, the GPA we're looking at is sometimes higher than the GPA on your transcript, which can help with academics or getting in, but also help with scholarships. So not every school does this. It's usually private schools over public schools, but it's definitely a great question to ask, especially if you're a student who's really invested in the AP or IB program at your high school. They tend to have small classes. That's what they're kind of known for, private or independent colleges, great education, and very undergraduate focused. So what that means is they hire the faculty that teach there to really teach students directly out of high school, not to research or work with graduate or PhD students that have been in school a long time, but really to teach you as an undergraduate. That tends to be what they pride themselves on. You do have to be prepared, like with any college, to embrace the culture or vibe of a school. And so I know that's hard in a virtual environment, but I'm going to give you some tips on starting to understand not just a college's academics, but also the vibe of a school in terms of who goes there. Will I belong? Will I make friends? Those are important questions. All right. I see a question about IB. I will answer that at the end. Public colleges and universities. So you guys are, again, lucky to live in Washington. We have a lot of options spread out all across the state versus like close together in the same city. So that's really nice because you can pick a different environment geographically and a different size or shape of public school. So many options. I tried to list them all on the screen. These are great education and usually a slightly larger environment, and tuition can be really affordable, especially if you're staying in state or looking at that WUI scholarship. They also are usually more generous when it comes to need-based scholarships. That's based on household income versus those merit scholarships. So they don't give out quite as much for grades and achievements, but they do give out quite a bit when it comes to need. So this could be a really great fit for you depending on your learning style, which we'll talk a little bit more when we get to a list. So it's a really quick breakdown of public versus private, and some of those things that we have on campus or across these campuses. What I'm curious about, and I'm going to launch a little poll, so I'd love to hear from you. How many of you, I know some of you are younger, but how many of you have done a college visit yet? Maybe it's official, so yes or no, and I even gave you I've been on a college campus, but I haven't done like an official tour. That's pretty even. I'm so impressed by all of you. You're all so far ahead of where I was at your age. That's great. All right. So quite a few of you have done an official college visit. That's awesome. So as we go into the next section, I'm going to talk about kind of how you can take some of what you care about into those visits in the future. So that's great. Thank you for sharing. So how do I narrow down these choices? We just talked about out of state, in state, public schools, private schools, community colleges. We really only focused on kind of Washington in terms of listing some schools. When you look across the nation, there are so many to choose from. So how do I even take my interests and apply those or layer those against some of these college choices? Most colleges are great. You're not going to make a bad choice, but how do you kind of navigate this experience and make it the choice that's best for you? So we talked about that first bullet point, but these are just some of the things you might just start to think about. So what type of a religious environment do you want? Does it actually offer your major? I know that seems silly, but some people have dream colleges and they are so focused on them. They end up going there even when they don't support their dreams and aspirations. I used to work, like I said, at UW Seattle, and it's a big school with lots of majors, but every year we'd have a student who's like, I can't wait to major in nutrition, which was a major we didn't have, at least at that time. I don't know if they do now, but you know, you want to make sure they can actually support that if you have one. Where am I going to live? What is that going to look like? What's that experience within residential life? Retention rate is interesting. That shows how many students start at that school and come back to that school. Graduation rates, are they graduating in 4, 5, 6 years? If you were really involved in high school, you're involved in student government or a newspaper, or you are involved in a sport, or really involved with their community, and you want to continue doing those things, make sure the school has either the clubs and activities or the environment in which to do that. What's there to do for fun? What's the food like? It's really important, especially if you're going to move there. You're going to eat 3 meals a day plus snacks on campus. So I always find that to be actually a really important factor. And then you really have to think about your learning style. What's the classroom experience like? Are faculty approachable? Are you a student who asks a lot of questions or likes to go before or after school and meet up with your teacher? Do you like that your teacher knows who you are? Or are you someone that's more competitive with your classmates, and a big environment might be really successful for you? Think about how you learn. Do you learn when someone's just speaking at you, like I'm doing now, unfortunately? Or is visuals more helpful to you? Or do you need to be engaged in the material in discussion or an activity? Because that is going to shape potentially the type of school that's best for you. And then you do have to think a little bit about cost. So what can I afford for college? So that's sometimes a tricky conversation to start with your family, but I highly encourage you to have that conversation a little bit earlier than later, because college is going to cost something for the majority of students. But colleges range in terms of how much they cost in that sticker price, but also how much they give in scholarships and aid. So having a ballpark or an idea of what you're hoping for, and then how realistic that is, looking at Googling colleges net costs, which I'll show you in a second how to do, that's going to be an important conversation to have a little bit earlier in the process, so that you don't fall in love with the school, and then ultimately it comes down to finances. We really want it to come down to where do you belong, not where you can afford. So think about those things. So how do you do this in an activity? And I'm going to send out an email after this. I should have all of your email addresses, just thanking you for coming and providing you a worksheet. And the worksheet's going to look like this, just a little cleaner. And what it is it's 3 steps to asking the right questions. So I've added some things here in step 1 that you can highlight or circle or cross off if they're not important to you. There's some empty lines. You can add some of your own things in. You can scribble all over this or draw, whatever your style is. Step 1 is your brainstorming session. You might even want to talk to some of the people closest to you to see what they think you might be interested in. And then you're going to head to step 2. And you're going to narrow that down to the 3 to 5 things that if you went to a college, you couldn't be successful there. It would not work. And you're going to put those here. And, so if you know what you want to be when you grow up, your major should probably be in this section. But like for me, I really wanted to live in a city. And so where it was located would have potentially been more important to me. So this list, step 2, your list should look different than your best friend's list, might even look different than one of your family members' lists for you. This list is going to be something that's very unique to each student. And then you're going to create a question in step 3 around each of those 3 to 5 things that you're going to use when you are emailing a college or talking to your counselors or visiting a school. And you're going to ask those across multiple colleges, or even do research online around multiple colleges, because a school is not going to be able to fit 100 things that are factors. But a school should be able to fit your top 3 to 5. They should be able to say yes to all of those. And if a school is saying no to more of them than yes, it's potentially not the best kind of place for you in the future. So let's think of one. Step 2, a lot of people put they want small class sizes. And what I find is when I do this activity in person with people, what that becomes for step 3 is the question is, what is your student to faculty ratio? Because we hear that. We see that in college review books. We see that online. It's something all of us have to report on. But I don't actually think it answers that question. So PLUs, we're about 12 to 1. UW Seattle, I believe, is 24 to 1. So not that different, and smaller than some of your classes in high school. So it doesn't sound that bad. But we're really different schools, right? We have 3,000 students. They have 52,000 students. I had a class of 500 people at UW Seattle. Our largest classroom seats 50. So that's different, right? But student faculty ratio didn't really get at those nuances and those differences. So what I would ask is, what is your average freshman class size? And what's your largest classroom on campus? And what classes are taught in that classroom? Because that starts to unpack, will the size of that school impact you based on your interests, based on those factors? So the other thing is, you're going to have to potentially change, edit, develop these questions as you go. So this is one of the ways that I think is sometimes helpful to break it down. And then you're going to take those questions and you're going to use them in all of these environments. You're going to research. And a lot of you have some time for this. So this isn't something that has to happen tomorrow. So we hope college fairs come back and that you actually go to those and you're able to engage with people like me in person and ask those questions. But the great thing is, colleges are offering so much virtually right now. So they're offering virtual college tours. They're offering virtual information sessions. They're offering you one-on-one sessions, which that might be intimidating for some of you, but I promise you that person is excited to meet with you and would love if you came prepared with 5 questions. You're going to talk to your community members. You're going to talk to people who went to those colleges. You're going to use your high school counselors, who are great resources. All of you has an assigned admission counselor, like myself, at a different college that you're interested in. You can find those people online by searching by Washington or even your specific county or high school. And you're going to use online resources. So I listed 3 here. I forgot to link Big Future, but they're all websites that are college search websites. So just to show you some of these, we'll see if these links work. I'm using PLU as an example, it's what I know. So we now have a virtual tour. We have a ton of YouTube videos now. So we have a virtual information session. And that is what a lot of schools are doing. Virtual tour, you don't even have to sign up. You just click and watch it. Virtual visit, yeah, you sign up, but it's much like this. You don't have to fully engage unless you want to. This is how you find admission counselors on a lot of sites. So on ours, we're broken down by high school. So you can actually search by Sumner High School or Bonnie Lake High School, and you can go and find who your admission counselor is. It's me, by the way. But if you didn't know or were looking at a different school. And then these are kind of great. So I don't always love college search websites because they give you grades and they kind of compare you like cars, but they give you a lot of information. So these give you all sorts of things. So brief information, it puts you in these rankings. It tells you our ACT and SAT ranges, although we're test optional. We'll talk about that more in the next webinar. It also has these great scatter plots. So you can actually see based on your GPA and your scores, what are your chances of getting in to a college. There's videos, and then here's that net cost. So it tells you kind of the difference between the required cost and the net cost. And it does that for not just PLU, but every school nationally that they're able to get information on. CapEx does the same thing, just a different search website. You might find one works better for you than the other. I do recommend that you make a new email address if you're doing this. You're going to get lots of email. How many of you are also already getting lots of email? And you're going to get lots of mail. I do think you should look through that at least really quickly, unsubscribe from the ones you aren't interested in, put some in the recycle bin, but keep some and kind of see what you think sounds interesting. Take ownership of this process. If I have one tip I want to leave you with, it's that you are in control of this college search process. I think a lot of students give colleges too much credit in this process, but you decide where to apply and you ultimately decide where to go. And we're excited if you choose us for either. You can get in. So I think there's a misnomer out there that we're all so competitive, but fewer than 100 colleges are considered highly selective. And again, this Your Chances takes you to that scatter plot I showed you on the niche.com website where you can even see what your chances are. And then don't make assumptions. So don't make assumptions about a community college or a private school or a public school, or schools too religious for me or too small or too far away. Really kind of research what that means, because you might be surprised at what school is the best place for you to kind of really belong and get to be yourself. So that's really important as you navigate this experience. So I have one more poll, just because I'm curious. we are going to do a what do you think are your most important factors as you are considering where to apply. It's a slightly longer one. You might have to read some of these answers. Yeah, we're getting quite a few different ones. Great. Yeah. Academic programs, so important because obviously you want it to be able to support your dreams and aspirations. So I can see why that is the leader currently. I like it. Yeah, student faculty research is one of those things I had no idea what that was when I was your age. But as we're talking about this, one of the things that has come up more recently is, can I get a job when I graduate, or am I going to get into graduate school if I want to go to medical school or law school or something like that? And sometimes the ability to do an internship or research while you're in college really helps with those things. So it's one of those things that maybe isn't going to influence where you apply, but it might influence where you end up going. So still something interesting to look at. All right, I'm going to take some questions because it looks like a few have come in. So are IBSL versus HL weighted differently? If a school weights a GPA, it's not based on which of those you're in. It's based on just taking the course. Sometimes how you get credit for IB is different on SL or HL, can be different. So it's going to be more on how you receive credit at the school. So you can always look for their policies. But for a weighted GPA, it's usually just that you're taking the IB course. Would there be admission officers assigned for out-of-state colleges? Yes. So what's really nice is I have a set of friends that works at colleges all across the nation, many of which travel here to Washington to work with Washington students. So if you're looking at a school in New York or Minnesota or California, you can get on their admission website and find who your admission counselor is. And usually there is a contact, an email or a form you fill out that puts you directly in contact with them. And I do actually recommend that you reach out, especially when you get to your junior year, senior year, because expressed interest, which is something we're going to talk about in the next webinar, is something that some schools do really pay attention to. They want to know that you're actually interested in their college. And yes, I am going to actually email this slideshow to anyone who signed up and attended, as well as that worksheet, so that you have it, because I want you guys to have more information, not less. So it will be available. It's also being recorded. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to send this out via video as well, especially to the counselors at the high schools in case a student wasn't able to make it and really wants the information. But I was trying to keep these in a short kind of 30 to 40 minute format. So it was a lot of information that I went over in kind of a short amount of time. Are there other, it looks like that's it for now. I'll check back in a second, but all of my information is on the screen. And one of the things I want all of you to know is that I just want you to explore college. It's okay if it's not PLU. I'd love it if it is, but you can email me with questions related to college no matter what. So if you're navigating this and have a question on what does this even mean? Can you define this term for me? Can you help me get in contact with a school? I can't promise that I can know everyone everywhere, but I'd love to be a resource for you. It's important to me to not only kind of work for PLU, but to serve the community in which I live. And so my son will be attending Bonnie Lake High School in 2 years, and I want to make sure that I'm working with students in this area. If someone raised their hand, so put your question in there in the Q&A down below. Or something. I know. I'm excited. I'm going to go see the parade here today. You can also schedule a one-on-one appointment with me using that link. And again, it can be about PLU or it can just be about college in general if you have a lot of questions. Last year, I worked with quite a few students at both schools to work through their college essays in their senior year. So, and some of those applied to PLU and some didn't. So I just want everyone to see me as a resource. So you can continue to ask questions in the Q&A. I'll stick around for a little bit longer. You can schedule an appointment. You can email me next week on this same time at the same place. We're going to do a how to get in, how to land on the yes pile. where we're going to really break down a college application and what people like me, admission people, are looking for in each section. So as you're thinking about what to do as a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and as you get to be a senior, hopefully that will be helpful as you build that application over those 4 years of high school. So that's what we're going to do next week. And I hope some of you come back and maybe tell your friends it was, decent. And so they can join me too. And I'm excited to do more of these throughout the month. So any other questions pop up? I think that's it. All right. I'm happy you all joined me. Expect an email from me either later today or tomorrow with this slideshow and with that worksheet. And hopefully I'll see some of you guys back next week. See you later. Have a great afternoon.